Hi guys, I'm Todd and I hope you're doing really well. Today I have a short one for you. I want to talk to you about the setup and productivity benefits of using dual monitors with your DAW. Now you see a lot of large format displays, televisions used to monitor for a DAW, and that gives you more real estate in terms of screen size so you can shrink things down. The issue is, of course, you get reflections off these large flat surfaces. The glass surface on the front of a TV is no exception. The other thing could be a widescreen monitor or an ultra-wide monitor. Some of them are curved, some of them are straight, but you have kind of the same experience. So dual monitor still has its place. Let's see why. Now, of course, we're all used to a typical display here in a DAW, and if you have a large multi-track session, of course, you run out of real estate pretty quickly. Now, of course, we can split that space up, and if we want to have things like a console mixer available, we can do that. Or if we want to add an editor in, for example, we can look at that. But we start to run out of screen room pretty fast, and we end up scrolling a lot. So moving over to a dual monitor setup can really help us with that. I'm going to switch over to a rear view behind me. It'll give you a better idea. Okay, so now that you can see this, I have this whole extra screen beside me here. I have a dual monitor here, and mine is split up for a couple of reasons. First of all, the reflections is one thing. You'll see that I have them angled. They're on actually special stands. I'll put links in the description below that allow you to have these really low profile and adjust them up and down. And that's so I can get the reflections moving around in different angles. And there's also a split in the middle, which allows me to add a camera here. That's something, that isn't necessarily going to be in your setup, but it really helps me out. So what I can do with this, of course, is I can go ahead and take things like this editor, and I can detach it, if you will. I can go ahead and I'll just take the editor, and in fact, what I'll do is I'll just bump it up loose here, and I can move it over to this other screen, and I can resize it and do whatever I want with it. And that can be a really handy thing to do. Of course, we can do the same thing with the console. And so I'll go ahead and bring the console here, have it on the screen in front of me. But if I choose to move it over, I can actually have it occupy, in this case, the whole screen. I can shrink it down as well. But what's nice here is I've also made the faders narrow, and this allows me to get all of my tracks and the master bus on screen. So really nice, if I want to be able to play through things and see everything that's going on. And of course, if I double click on any one track, I can expand it. There's some other things we can do with this too. This is Studio One. It'll be a little different in every DAW, but if I go to the auto expand feature in here, what's really nice is when I go from one to the next, it'll expand automatically to whatever one I'm on, so I can see what's going on in that track while still maintaining everything. And of course, now if I want to go ahead and add the editor back in or any other window, I can go ahead and I can split real estate with that too. So we'll just go ahead and I'll close up the console. I've got the editor here. I'll dock it back in underneath, and then I'll just reopen the console so you can see. And so now I have the console, I have the editor, I have all my tracks above here, and I get a lot more view of what's going on. And so this is one of the ways I like to do this, to get as many things on screen as possible when I'm working in a mix session. Now there are other options here too. And one of the things that's interesting is if you have your desktop set up in the extend desktop mode, so in other words, you can drag from one to the next, one of the things you can do is actually take your DAW and you can stretch it. So I'll show you what that looks like here. I'm going to just go ahead and get into the side here, and I'm going to pull it over to the side. And so by doing that, now I have a lot more of my song visible here. I've got a lot more time. May not fit the whole thing in, but I have a lot. And again, I can fit all of my mixer faders all the way across the bottom. So this is another way of doing it. Now there can be things about this that are less than ideal. We can end up splitting the transport controls at the bottom here. I don't typically use those on screen anyway, so it's not that big of a deal for me, but that's just something to be aware. Same thing applies if I opened up the editor here, if I was programming drums, doing something like that. I could see a lot more of the song at the same time, so I really like that idea as well. Now, I'm not saying the dual monitor is the ideal setup either. There are issues. Of course, there's a split in between the screen. Once you get used to it, you actually don't notice it so much, and of course, for me, I have the camera in between, so I've got a little more room than a lot of people. But one of the things I really like is the ability to angle the monitors slightly differently to break up the sound reflections. That to me is something that is the most difficult thing to deal with when you have to have a display in front of you. Now, we're very fortunate to have a lot of ways that we can boost our productivity when working in a DAW. And if you're looking for other ideas along those lines, I encourage you to check out one of these videos. As always, I appreciate you joining me. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time.